If you spend any time on YouTube learning about YouTube, you've heard the word retention. It's one of the most important indicators of a video's performance, and it's why we look at metrics like your average view duration and your average view percentage to get an understanding of the health of that video. But for a lot of us, this seems like mystical magic numbers that might not make sense, and how can we make actionable decisions from that? Worse than that, there's tons of videos giving advice on how to retention hack, which essentially means how to trick people into staying on your video longer so that number is artificially boosted and then YouTube pushes it to more people. I've never liked the idea of retention hacking. All research on dopamine hijacking and attention span dwindling aside, it just seems like a pretty crappy thing to do. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what retention is in first principles and demystify it so that you don't have to spend hours doing really goofy edits that don't actually add value to your videos. From a data perspective, retention is just a graph showing you how long people watched your video. But the quality that this is measuring is how much people actually care about your video. This is what my friend Evan Rogas likes to say. He's a YouTube strategist and a really successful YouTuber in the Christianity niche. And he says that retention is just a measurement of how much your viewers care. I think that's pretty much right. So while a lot of creators are focused on hijacking and manipulating their audience through editing tricks and quick transitions and other tactics like that, if you just focus on how to make your audience care about your video minute after minute, you're going to see way better results. And also what you'll learn is that retention hacking is actually the lazy way to do it. It comes with the assumption that if I manipulate the artifacts on the screen enough, you'll be forced to pay attention to me and not click off. That's ultimately a bad play, because then instead of creating an audience that trusts you and enjoys your videos and comes back willingly, you're having to strap them to a chair and force them to stick around, which is pretty rude. And eventually some of your audience is going to catch on and click away anyways. But what if I told you there's a more simple principle that can increase retention that doesn't involve misleading or dopamine hijacking anybody and can actually be more effective than retention hacking to begin with? Okay, so let's break it down. If retention is fundamentally a measurement of how much people care about your video, that's a measurement of their responses to the content that you're delivering. If the things they're seeing in your video are resonating with them, whether they're entertaining or funny, or they're informative or valuable, all of those are responses that someone is having to your video, and those responses are driving their engagement. That means that there's a strong link between retention and invoking emotions. That means if you invoke the right emotion at the right times to your audience, then you're going to increase retention. But you don't have to hypnotize people to do this. In fact, there's probably a lot of creators you follow that are already doing this. It's why rage bait's a thing. People see something that makes them mad, they click on it, the video makes them more mad, and they got the expected emotional response out of the video, and it retained them the whole way. The people who create rage bait content know exactly what they're doing, and they do it because it's so effective. Now, for those of us who don't want to just endlessly piss people off all day, it's important to know that fear and anger are really powerful emotions, and there is a proper time to invoke those emotions and to do it responsibly, but it's actually not the most powerful emotion. The most powerful emotion that you can invoke in a human being, period, is awe. It's the emotion you have during a beautiful sunset, or when you walk into some Gothic cathedral, or see a beautiful forest scene, or a deer walking by. I mean, some of those are kind of cheesy, but you know what I'm talking about. It's that moment where your jaw drops and you're just in awe of what you're seeing or what you're hearing. And something similar to this happens when someone is teaching you something immensely valuable. You have this moment where it clicks and it unlocks something in your brain, and you are immediately aware of the value that that person just brought you, and frankly, the time that they just saved you. And that's pretty much it. Invoking the proper emotion for your audience at the right time is going to drive retention, and it's going to be more effective than dopamine hacking because it's more honest. Now, you might be thinking, but wait, can't I just manipulate this to invoke emotions and retain them and hack them that way? Yeah, you certainly could. You could do that. And in fact, like I mentioned, a lot of people do this with rage bait and troll content, but you're still retention hacking when you're doing that. You're just using the most powerful form of it that you can, but eventually your audience is going to catch on. I think all of us have been on the internet long enough to have found a few creators that we watched for a while that were just hooking us into a rage cycle or a fear cycle, and eventually we kind of catch on and unsubscribe from that person and stop watching them. If you're manipulating people's emotions for the wrong reasons for personal gain that doesn't bring them value, they're going to catch on, and you're only shooting yourself in the foot. But if you're taking the valuable content that you already plan on making and thinking about how each section of that video can prompt the proper emotional response that your audience would expect from that content, now we're talking about something that's both more ethical and more trustworthy, and long-term is going to be a way better play for your brand. So practically, what does this look like? I think to start, it looks like aligning the content of your message with your audience. If I am a PhD in neuroscience, I'm probably not going to use industry standard technical language if I'm trying to communicate some of the key principles of my work to a 12th grader. And the same is true of YouTube. If you're making videos, it's probably based on expertise or experience in a particular industry. And there's a lot of buzzwords that come with that people that you're trying to reach for your business are not going to understand. But if you put yourself in their shoes first and say, what are they thinking about? Why is my audience interested in this topic? What value does it bring them? How do they typically talk about it? You can meet them where they're at. And in so doing, they're going to feel understood, and you're going to be a better communicator for it, because then you're effectively taking a high level concept and boiling it down to a place where they can understand it. And this makes it look like it's a belittling thing, but this is just how knowledge-based systems work. If I start talking about camera gear in those terms, I'd lose you really quick. But if I'm talking about some of those principles and using analogies and putting it in language that you do understand, now I've elevated your knowledge closer to my level. This for me is the ultimate goal for businesses being on YouTube. If I can teach people things, if I can bring value to their life, that's going to develop trust faster than these retention hacking mechanisms and just hoping we go viral. So at the end of the day, that's what retention is all about. It's a measurement of how much people care about what they're watching. And to increase how much they care, you have to align your message with your audience and make sure it's catered to them. And it's also designed to invoke the proper emotional responses at the right time. So that's basically how I view retention. It's just a measurement of how much people care. And the best way to increase retention is to align our message with our audience's perspective first, and then use it to bring them closer to whatever their goal is for that video. If it's to be entertained, it's to bring them entertainment. If it's to learn something or solve a problem, we're going to align our messaging to them, and then in those terms, help them solve that problem. Hopefully that was valuable. Let me know what you thought in the comments, or if you have any questions about this topic or other topics related to YouTube for businesses who are looking to grow on YouTube, and I'll see you in the next one.